Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our webinar for the light industrial crisis, getting talent back to work. My name is Meg Goulet, and I am the marketing director at Monster Worldwide, and I'm going to be your host for the next 45 to 60 minutes. The light industrial industry was shoved into the spotlight last year as these essential workers helped us stay safe through their commitment to manufacturing, production, supply chains, and logistics. However, these unsung heroes are hard to come by, and there's a need, even post-pandemic, to attract these candidates quickly. The impact of open recs could be substantial. Deloitte projected a potential loss of $454 billion in production by 2030 due to unfulfilled jobs. Thank you so much for everyone who answered or submitted questions in advance today. Clearly, this is a very hot topic, and I am very thrilled to have three industry experts who are joining us to help answer those questions. Today, we have David Lockhart, the Executive Vice President of Nesco Resource, James Tompkins, Director of Supply Chain Staffing within the Staffing of the Universe family of companies, and Tina Radosky, the Vice President of Talent Acquisition at PeopleReady. As mentioned, thank you again for submitting your questions. We tried to incorporate as many as possible throughout the webinar. If you didn't get a chance to submit in advance, or even if you did and another one just comes to mind and you want to ask, please feel free to use the Q&A or the chat functionality at the bottom of your screen. That gets sent to all of the panelists. I know we have about 45 to 60 minutes. We'll try to get to as many as possible. And if afterwards we need to follow up, we will. And if you've missed anything, you're taking notes, don't worry. We will send out a recording of the webinar tomorrow. Monster also has just finished a light industrial ebook that we'll include in a link to that follow-up email too. So with that, let's get started. The hottest topic right now, regardless of industry, seems to be wages. According to Burning Glass, some light industrial jobs are paying almost 20% more today than it was 2 years ago. So David, let's start with you. Are you seeing this trend as well?
Not only are we seeing the trend, but the 20% may be on the low side. 2 years ago, pre-pandemic, in the light industrial entry-level space, if you had a client with a pay rate of $12 an hour, that was a very attractive rate and an easy position to fill. There's been a lot of conversation in the country over the last several years about a $15 minimum wage. In many markets that we all participate in, there is now a de facto $15 minimum wage. In most markets, we won't even accept an assignment at $12 an hour just because we know we can't fill it. We have a very large industrial supplier with facilities in multiple states. At the beginning of the pandemic, they paid $12.50 an hour. With attendance bonuses, they have moved to $20 an hour. So there has been a substantial acceleration, and a lot of our larger customers have put this in as a pandemic wage, but I think in all seriousness, there's little chance that we're going to be able to walk these wages back. So yes, we're certainly seeing it. We continue to see it. It's what we spend most of our time talking to our clients about.
That's a great point about having to communicate that to clients as well. James, how do you handle those expectations?
Yeah, so it's definitely important in this kind of market to be sharing this, market research with your clients. So on our end, it's wage data. Like David had mentioned, he's probably taking, what someone is doing well and then sharing it with another client. We're certainly looking at, sharing supply and demand right now with how many people are out there versus how many open positions there are, especially in certain markets that we're looking at specifically. So if you're looking for something in particular, and so are 100 other companies, a realistic level of expectation there is really where it comes to. I mean, it's certainly the market to be having a couple difficult conversations, and tough conversations just generally are going to be the only way that you're going to get to where you need to be successful. I could piggyback off what David said is that, that $12 mark was, certainly there. And then in 15 has now almost been surpassed in my eyes. So it's really about how you communicate that back to clients and, your vendors, whatever that may be, to just share that information and just showing, got a job in the same town paying this, you're paying this. How could we possibly push people into your door over their door?
And how do you deal with that pushback? Because, a lot of people on the phone, they might need to be communicating to higher ups that the job that they have, the rec that they have at the salary range that they have isn't quite going to cut it. So how do you handle pushback? Because sometimes some people don't have the resources to play that salary game, that wage game.
Definitely, yeah. We understand everyone's looking for a return on their investment here. And we certainly understand that these large organizations have bottom dollars and some of the smaller organizations, may have some more flexibility. But, with these things having to go up the rungs, and go through, approvals and approvals with these large organizations, I think time is certainly, something there. Clients are saying like, oh, I could give an example. I have a client that when this all started laid off everybody in one of their warehouses. They come back 2 months later, hey, we're looking to get people back in. We start, and of course, running into the same struggle as everyone else. 2 months later, what is it? You're offering, hey, you need to increase the wage. Now we're at 6 months. They finally say, hey, how do we go about doing this? And we get it formalized, and boom, they go and they give a 10-15% increase. Kind of like David said, 20% has been blown by in some markets. Now they're 6 months down the road and they haven't increased, the wages that they should have increased 6 months ago. So now it's a new conversation. So it's certainly those difficult conversations. The reality is, to be successful right here, you're going to drill for something that's not there, or you're going to drill for something that you can actually have some results in. We're all here to fill jobs at the end of the day, not just work on them. So I just think having those conversations, they're certainly going to push back and say, hey, no, in my eyes, if they're saying no, then the reality is, I have to explain to you why you can't get people in the door versus your competitors who are doing things and are getting competitive, who are getting people in the door. So in this type of market, if you're not willing to do it, the next person will. That's certainly what we're noticing.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that has come as such a shock to me is when you say competitors, you would think, okay, if you lost warehouse workers, you're competing against somebody who's also hiring for that. I read a recent Wall Street Journal article that noted that pay for factory jobs has grown so slowly in the US that manufacturers are having trouble competing with fast food restaurants. So it's a different kind of competition out there. Tina, I want to go to you for a second. Do you think that you've lost some of the light industrial workforce to some of these other industries?
Absolutely. A candidate can really shop around for the type of job they want to do. So someone that maybe was traditionally in that industrial workforce is really open to going into food and beverage, into retail. Hospitality, we've seen just blossom just in the last couple months. Some statistics for you. Some of our fastest growing jobs in the last 30 days, food and beverage attendants have grown by 365% just in the last 30 days. Catering services, 259%. Stockroom associates for retail, 226%. So these industries are really taking off and giving our light industrial workers other opportunities they may have not had before.
So this might be a large question, but how do we get them back?
So I think the key to getting them back is, really attracting them, giving them a career versus a job, right? So can we career path them? Can we say, this is your entryway, but here's where it leads to, right? Here's your step 2, here's your step 3. I think that's what people are looking for, a job versus a career. A job is quick money. It's something they're going to do for a short period of time. A career is something they're going to commit to and hopefully one day have a retirement from. So I think that's one of the ways that we can try to get the workforce back where we need them to be.
That's great. And that's actually spot on with one of the comments that we received from an attendee, really helping to market the lucrative career opportunities within manufacturing. James, do you have anything else to add to this?
Tina was saying it great just in regards to that. And nowadays, we were mentioning earlier, instant gratification is what a lot of people are looking for. So not only do they want that, career pathing aspect of it, they want to know what it is coming in, and it's got to be clear. And as soon as you miss the mark on something, these workers are going to let you know, and then they're going to move on to the company that's willing to do it for them. So I just definitely think clear, concise plans for some of these people, whereas before it's, we unfortunately use the term bodies, we're looking for bodies for certain jobs. now these people aren't willing to be accepted as, being viewed as that. They're being looked at and wanting these extra things there. And I think just giving them a clear direction as to where they can go within an organization that may not be something they have a ton of experience in just yet, but gives them a chance to develop a career versus a job, as Tina was saying.
So we've talked about wages, we've talked about career pathing. David, I'm going back to you for a second. What else can you offer to help incentivize candidates to come back?
Well, this is a little bit to what Tina and James were saying. We spend a lot of our time with candidates now. We're not talking about our benefits. We're talking about our clients and their benefits. 90+% of our assignments are contract to hire. So we need to be, in kind of industry parlance, selling the sizzle. We need to talk about what the work environment is like. Before we started this conversation, we talked a bit about the perception of manufacturing: dark, dank, dingy. In most manufacturing facilities, that's just not the case anymore. They're very modern. They're very automated. Most of the machines require a certain skill set. There's a lot of computers involved, and there's a lot of opportunity for advancement. And that's what we spend time talking to people about. Where can they go within our customers once they leave us and go on full time with the client? That's the way to get people to come in and see a real opportunity.
That's a great point. And actually it ties back to another thing that an attendee had said. To your point in terms of changing that perception, there's also the perception of not only what it is, but the amount of experience that you need to get there. You can't just zoom into production, as someone says. You need to have that hands-on application and experience, but also understanding that it's a long-term value to it as well. How do you talk to hourly employees about this career pathing and also showing them they are so valued to stay with you for a long time?
It's all about setting expectations and communication. When we bring people into our offices, our philosophy is to treat them as if they're a guest in our home. That's the difference these days. We have to understand that the employees are the gold standard of the industry right now. We have to treat them well. They have to believe that they're going to be treated well at our clients. And the current generation is much more about values and what is the attitude in the workplace? Are they treated fairly? And that's the sort of thing that we're communicating now. It's not about, I'm going there to do a job, but what's the environment going to be like for me? So that's what we spend a lot of time talking about.
And this employer brand, it's also probably a great place to talk about safety concerns, which still, I believe, is still a fairly important topic and hot issue, obviously not as much so in 2020. James, is this something that you're seeing that you need to communicate still more and more?
Absolutely. I would almost argue personally that 2021 has increased even from 2020, because we've all kind of grown over the last year, and we've all kind of seen things that, used to happen in the past that I think a lot of us realize, maybe some people may be uncomfortable with. And, it's just important to, have these workers feel safe. That's certainly been a very pressing topic when speaking to candidates for these roles. They're safe at home right now. That's where they feel safe. So how do you get them into the workplace and do some things a little bit differently than maybe you did before, which, to be determined what exactly all those things can be sometimes. But, certainly I know some places have somewhat implemented, like COVID checklists, or, they're offering testing on site, or they even offered vaccination on site and things like that for people that are looking for that. That's certainly something that's, helping on that particular topic. But I don't think it's going away. We're certainly kind of wherever we are right now with everything. And, September is coming, and we thought that it might be September, and now we're kind of looking at it again and just figuring out whether or not it will in fact be September. So safety is a top concern, especially you're talking personal safety, and then you're talking job safety, right? So we're talking about getting people into manufacturing environments where you certainly need to be safe, to do your job effectively and be able to come home each night. So I think safety is one of the biggest things I'm hearing on my side, when speaking to candidates right now.
David, Tina, anything to add to safety?
No, I think I agree 100%. People want to feel safe in their work environment and also make sure that when they're going home to their family, that they're ensuring their family safety as well. So it's just important for us as employers to ensure they have all the protective gear that they need. They're given all the instruction and training that they need ahead of time to make them feel confident in their environment.
Yeah, certainly early on, the last few months, the number one thing that caused an employee to leave was they went in there and thought that the social distancing was not adequate. So that's a year ago, we never heard of it. Now it's all we hear about. So companies do need to be, and we're seeing it for the most part. You go into most of our clients and they are very focused on this. They are probably in most cases with the manufacturing clients, they're moving slower than the CDC, not faster. They're staying very cautious.
Thank you. Those are all really good points too. So I'm going to jump around a little bit here. One of the things that we keep hearing about is automation. There's some questions about whether people are losing work due to automation. Tina, do you think this statement is true, or do you think this is an opportunity to upskill?
I think it's an opportunity to upskill. We don't see people losing work due to automation. We just think, we talked a little bit about this earlier, right? Automation just means that we need people to do other pieces of the job, and maybe it's monitoring the automation. So when you think about, even with the expansion of automation and artificial intelligence in marketing and product sales and ordering, we continue to see the explosive growth in blue collar and hospitality jobs. So it really is showing us that we have that need out there, even with the expansion. So they kind of go hand in hand.
And how do you feel like automation has kind of evolved over the last 5 years, especially not just, in the last two with COVID and having to change how things work, but even just looking past beyond that?
I think it just makes everything, easier when it comes to, our everyday lives. But in the workforce, it's really, we need other people to support it. It's giving us other opportunities that we haven't seen before, and opening us up, especially in our fields, to other industries that we need to support.
All right, James, is there anything that you wanted to add? I'd love to hear more about upskilling too.
Yeah. So one important thing, when we talk about upskilling and these particular jobs, I think that clients fail to realize is the cost of turnover, right? So that's arguably more expensive than bringing somebody in and, training them the right way to get the job done. So that's something that I push a lot, just talking about that. And right now, there's certainly a skills gap for a bunch of these jobs. So we're trying to bring people to do jobs that, quite frankly, don't get taught at the same rate as they were taught in the past. Just thinking back, there was wood shop and there was a lot of like automotive stuff in some high schools and things along the way. And now that's certainly not a part of every, high school. So how do they learn those skills, especially as they become a lot more technical with all of our technology? So they certainly have proven that they have the technical skills to learn whatever it is, but now it's time for the companies, instead of, it's always easy to say, hey, get me something new versus working on what you have already. And then I think that's a big push right now, is those clients that have people in house certainly need to focus on some of those people and get them into, better positions. So that way, when they bring in the next wave of people, maybe they can use them in some fashion. So the upskilling is certainly huge right now. There's quite frankly no other way to fill some of these roles in some of these manufacturing environments.
Thank you. Going to jump around a little bit here. We're getting a lot of great questions in. One of the common themes that we're hearing is, despite all the opportunities, right? Upskilling, proving value, higher wages, there's still a massive issue in terms of getting ghosted, either during the interview process, onboarding, even first day. People who've accepted the job just aren't showing up. Any suggestions in terms of how to fix this issue? It seems to be industry-wide.
We're open to suggestions as well. So, we were talking about this a bit. There's no magic fix. I know David hit in part of his response on something else before, is that it's candidate control, and that starts from the initial conversation, the initial meeting, whenever that is, first conversation, right? What do they say with I can't think of what exactly I want to say, but your first impression is everything. So that's the reality, right? And just as in the past, we looked at it that the candidate owed it to us, we need to turn that on its head, and we need to look at what we owe to the candidate in a market like this. So that's a big thing that I push there. The ghosting aspect is, been somewhat part of the job, forever. It's certainly increased at a rate that we certainly wish would slow down and make our jobs a little easier. But when you can walk into store one and get an offer at this pay rate, walk in the store next door and get $1 more, and walk in the store next door and get $1 more, people are going to tell you that could happen in an hour. That's what people aren't understanding. That's not happening over weeks like it happened before. That could happen in one day, in one trip to the mall, or one drive down your local highway to pop in whoever's hiring. They're going to go after the money. It's a lower income type of field, and that's kind of that. But on the ghosting, it's just candidate control on our end. And then when you can, sharing with your clients that are hiring that some of these older processes that they would put people through to get people in the door are just not relevant in 2021 in this economy. They want to stand on their head and say, we have to do this. We get that. We're there to support them at the end of the day, but we also have to look at it from the other side and say, who is working with us? What clients are willing to speed up their onboarding process, to allow people to maybe go on site with them instead of coming to us to onboard, like this model generally works. Can we get them in the door the next day, right? So just pushing clients on that, and I think is certainly something that we can do.
I'd agree with James on that. That's one of the things that we have, besides talking about the wage rates with our clients, one of the number one conversations we're now having is the onboarding time frame. If someone's got to interview every candidate and it's got to go before 2 supervisors, by the time that they decide they want to onboard that candidate, the candidate's long gone. The other thing that slowed us down in the pandemic is the background checking. The courts use runners. The runners can't go to the courts. So we've got some large international companies that would have never allowed us to start people pending, but we're starting to have that regular conversation. We're starting to see criminal backgrounds being lightened up on as well. Used to be some companies where I want no felony, no misdemeanor, and it's really limited their candidate pool. So we've had to have that conversation as to kind of jump back to what else can we do regarding ghosting. It's all about almost like constant contact. We keep talking to our people. We use AI technology that reaches out to them day they sign up with us, morning before they start, evening before they start. We all have to understand that after we make them an offer, they probably get 4 or 5 more offers before they actually start with our client.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Our candidates are shopping, and they're shopping from employer to employer. And I think it's really about who is the most engaging to them, who's paying the most, what is the best hours for them, right? So they're very specific on the flexibility for them to have a balance with their home and work life. So that's a big part of the picture nowadays as well. So they just have more options than they've ever had before. So that's where the ghosting is coming in. It's something that we're seeing just across the board, whether it's at apply and you never talk to, you're never able to get a hold of them again, or they do go all the way through the process, accept the offer, and just never show up for work.
Yep. I'm seeing some comments about hopes of a fall hiring boom. Of course, a big factor in all of this is unemployment benefits. I read, I think last week, that as many as 26 states have decided to stop the federal benefit before the official cutoff date of September 6th. David, how are you planning, hopefully, for an influx of candidates?
Well, to be brutally honest,
please do.
I'm not expecting an influx of candidates, to be honest with you. I hope that it happens, but we have to understand we were in a tight help market pre-pandemic, and it's just gotten. Most of us have a light duty program for light industrial. We do that for a reason, because people lose the will to work. And unfortunately, over the last year and a half, we've had a good hunk of the country sit at home, and a lot of lost that will to work. So it's a real challenge for us to coax them back out, and we're doing everything we can. I think another big factor that's going to determine whether we have a help boom or not is if they can actually open the schools up. If they don't get the schools open, we've got a big problem. If they do get the schools open, we've got a large population that we can start to coax back to work.
A great follow-up question just came in. Do you think people coming off of unemployment will be passive or more active candidates? How motivated do you think they'll be?
I think we need to understand that most of the candidates we deal with now are passive candidates. If somebody's proactive, I'm sure the other panelists could say the same thing as me. I mean, I have 5-figure to 10 figures worth of job openings. Mm-hmm. So if I had active candidates, I'd be filling them up. So we're almost 100% concentrated on the passive candidate.
Agree. If you're an active candidate, you found a job, right? It took you a day, and you probably started 3 days later. So definitely passive is what we need to do. We need to go out and find them. And finding them nowadays it's kind of going back to when I started in recruiting many years ago, where we're going more grassroots. We're getting into the communities. We can't post and pray. We can't do those things that we've done for years, right? We have to go back to grassroots.
I think that's a great point. Someone was asking about how they stand out above the competition when recruiting. That's a great way to approach it as well. Actually, Tina, I'm going to stay with you because I know that Trueblue has actually done a really great job innovating and differentiating themselves. I believe you created an app to kind of improve the candidate experience. Are you able to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So for People Ready specifically, our app is called JobStack. And really, this is putting control into the candidate and the associate's hands. The app does work both ways with our clients as well as with our associates. But staying with the theme of our candidates and associates, it gives them an app where they can apply and onboard, which is all virtual, including our completed I-9 process. And then they can be matched to jobs, or they can shop our jobs. And it's really about putting jobs when they're available, right? What shifts are they looking for? Are they looking to grab an extra shift because they have a full-time job? Are they looking for 5 days a week, 40 hours a week? So it gives them more control. And like I said, with our matching technology, it really ensures that we're verifying what the workers are looking for. We're matching them up based on their backgrounds. We're looking at skills they're trying to get in addition to, so talking about upskilling earlier. So this is really what our technology is all about. It's really giving that control back to our associates and let them go to work when they're ready to go to work.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we're about 30 minutes in, and I am scrolling through lots of questions and comments. So I want to steer away and start knocking some of these off. We did get to a few during our conversation, but I want to make sure we get to as many as possible. So apologies in advance if they're all over the place, but I appreciate them. Please keep having them come in. Let's see. How do you feel that work-life balance plays into the manufacturing industry, as most are typically shift work? They commented on that we see more and more of this generation putting more focus on work-life balance when it comes to making employment decisions. I think this is what we were talking about earlier, right? In terms of branding, perception, and talking to the next generation.
Yeah, this is a real challenge right now. Our manufacturing clients can't get anywhere near enough individuals to meet their quotas, to meet production. So they're tending to work people longer. And at the same time, we have people that no longer, it used to be that you had a lot of people that I want to work as many hours as possible. Now a lot of people do want that work-life balance. And we have, as an industry, we have a real problem with turnover. And this is one of the things that really causes that turnover, is that we get a lot of burnout very quickly. So I'm sure the other two have experiencing the same thing.
Yeah, I think that David's point is that not only do they only want to work maybe 40 hours, they want to make the wages that they would make if they worked 50 or 60. So, you're just adding another wrench into the mix with that as well. It's tough. I mean, a lot of these manufacturing companies want to run 24/7. I'm sure like many have seen a lot of those companies shut down from 24/7 production because of the labor shortage, and some that are still not even back up to where they would hopefully be. So just begs the question, what are they willing to do on the back end to, get some of these people in the door?
Yes, agree.
A lot of comments that we're seeing is also around benefits being just as important as wages, looking at the full package. Are you seeing the service and retail industries competing with benefits such as health insurance, tuition reimbursement, childcare, et cetera?
Yeah, I would say yes. We talked a little bit about this before. People are looking for careers and not just jobs. And when you think about a career, you think about benefits and PTO and tuition reimbursement, and how am I going to make sure my kids are taken care of? So this is playing a role in them choosing their next spot, their next role. They want to make sure they're getting everything that will cover their life.
How about hazard pay during COVID for manufacturing jobs? Are you finding that a lot of companies are offering this?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's basically what they're calling these, taking their pay rate from 13 to 16 or whatever the jump is. A lot of them have coached it as hazard pay. But I think the challenge is going to be that when COVID's over, I don't think you can turn the wheel back. So, but yes, we do see a lot of it staged that way.
Given the competitive environment, do you think recruiters of today should have more sales experience, perhaps?
Absolutely. Recruiters have to become hunters. They can no longer be admins that are doing offer letters and waiting for people to walk through the door. They have to go and hunt for candidates. They have to sell them on our roles, on our customers, all of it.
I think Tina said it best before. You can no longer post and pray, right? So it's just a different way of working right now. I mean, anybody with a sales background would certainly be, better in the recruiting space if they had that type of background, I think.
Yeah, currently we're focused on getting everything out of the way of our recruiters that isn't direct recruiting. It used to be that back in the day, and for a lot of us, recruiters were more application takers.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case anymore. Nobody walks through our doors anymore unless we've encouraged them to walk through our doors. So we're doing everything we can to have our recruiters focus 100% on recruiting.
Yeah, for People Ready, we brought a new talent engagement organization together about a year ago. And one of the key things we did is we did not title our people as recruiters. They're sourcers. Their job is to source candidates and drive flow.
I was going to mention something very similar to what David and Tina both said. We've taken a lot of those admin responsibilities off of recruiters' desks. And recently I've hired some junior people that maybe I might not have hired, a year ago or 2 years ago to do exactly that, to source resumes. Maybe they're not going to be the best people to have those full in-depth conversations, but they can at least find the resumes and we can get them over to people that we feel more comfortable having those conversations.
Tina, regarding the community-based recruiting tactics that you mentioned, how are you adding value to those community-based organizations, and how are you measuring success with those community-based organizations?
So I think it's about developing partnerships with the community-based organizations, right? We're inviting them into our branches. We're teaching them about our opportunities. We're educating them so they can educate their clients. Mm-hmm. So that's really the key thing. You're not just using them as a source. You're really partnering with them. And that's really what it's about. I mean, where people are today is they're out in their communities, they're out in these organizations, they're out at the food banks, so we need to be there with them as well. But I think that's really it. It's about education, it's about partnership. It's not just about using them as a new source.
For the talent shortage, are you open to training and engaging in apprenticeship programs? Or are you seeing your clients engaging in this?
I've noticed it. Currently we're in the summer, noticing a lot more manufacturing clients willing to accept just summer hires for students. That's definitely something there that I've noticed.
How about sign-on bonuses for temporary associates?
Yeah, it's definitely something that's included. What I think I've seen more of is retention bonuses because they don't just want to give the money up to somebody that they weren't sure was going to walk in the door to begin with. And then we're probably on the same page there. Definitely like one of my major clients, a 30, a 60, 90-day retention bonus. And then some of them are even expanding it out to offer people a sizable amount of money to stick for a year or two, where it's thousands of dollars as opposed to hundreds of dollars. So it's certainly as creative as you can get within your budget.
Yeah, someone actually asked a very similar question. If you have to jump up wages to get a new hire, what are you doing for current employees? Are you raising across the board? So the retention program seems to be a great fit for that.
And that's one of our clients' big challenges is that, we're showing them a wage survey where they need to pay more to bring people in the door. And their big challenge is that the people they already have in the door are below that, and they know they're going to have to bring everybody up. So, we feel their pain, but it's the reality of the markets. But we're seeing a lot of, to James, we've got clients that pay $500 after 30, $1,000 after 60, and $1,500 after 90 when they hire on. And we're seeing $100 referral bonuses being thrown around like confetti. It's just a very unusual market.
Absolutely. And I know some of the questions are about their current associates as well. So as an example, people ready for the month of July, we did a sweepstakes that every shift that you worked, you got entered into a sweepstakes to earn cash prizes. And this was something that would benefit not only new hires, but current associates too. And it was really just around encouraging them to continue to take shifts with us. And at the end of the week, you were going to see these big benefits. And we've really got some great results from it.
Great.
Yeah, I think with that too, even internally, people that I'm hiring to work directly with me, we've staggered some of that compensation for those people as well. So some junior people I may have brought on, they have set marks where they'll have increases, whereas in the past it was kind of just left up to, we would discuss it at a certain point, and we've all been down that road and know how those conversations go, versus now it's a 3-month this, a 6-month this, and these are salary increases for internal employees versus a bonus or something like that. I had someone that came in within 3 months. We generally would turn commission on after 3 months. They were doing so well in 2 months that I can't afford to even consider losing that person. We just made an adjustment, and we, adjusted internal policy to make sure that recruiter is getting paid a little more now. That'll hopefully last us a lot more, long term. So I think it applies everything that we do, right? We need people to work for us ourselves too. So everything kind of goes across the board.
Seems to be a lot of love for this raffle idea for the sweepstakes. This is a bit of a technical question. Who bears the cost of the sweepstakes? Is it something that's shared?
So for us, it's shared across the business, right? Because every shift worked is revenue to a company, right? So it's something that kind of offsets itself with the additional revenue that you're going to get from the shifts worked. So it's shared across the business.
Great. Are you seeing that candidates are also showing a preference for condensed work weeks?
Yes. Manufacturing, I know I have a client that reduced from a 5-day, 8-hour, 5 8s to 4 10s. Just that you're getting a 3-day weekend every weekend. That goes a long way. From what I've seen is those workers are not falling off at the same rate as they may be falling off for a similarly paying job elsewhere, working 5 days a week. I mean, we mentioned gas prices going up. It's expensive for people that are used to, maybe sitting at home, and now they're going to go into the office 5 days a week, depending where they live. In a rural area, could be a long commute. You could be talking, more money than it's worth for some people at times to drive into the office at times. So.
Great. In terms of processes, would onboarding timeframe process include more companies waiving drug screens?
Well, the answer is yes. We also see, because of the changing marijuana laws, we're seeing that dropped out of a lot of our clients. And again, one of the things about the drug screens is that for most of us, that requires them either A, to go to a clinic, or B, to go to one of our facilities. So I think Tina had mentioned earlier how they have a very streamlined remote process, which this kind of blocks. So yes, anything that can be done to speed the process is great. And James, it was interesting. You're just commenting about you're doing this we're in the exact same position as you internally. We're spending as much time looking at our internal folks as we are our associates. We face the same challenges our clients do.
Tina, for you about Trueblue and People Ready, I'm not sure, this is a little technical. How is Trueblue and People Ready doing I-9s completely virtually without review of confirmation or documentation?
So there are a lot of new technology partners out there that have I-9 tools where they can use a remote verifier. It could be someone's friend, or as long as the person's over 18 years old and physically sees the documents, they can complete the Section 2 and complete that remote verification. So we can do it completely virtual right now.
And we use the same process, especially during COVID. We leaned on it heavily.
And on our end, we sit out in New York and New Jersey and work nationally. So that's been a big part of our model for the longest time. Program we're using, if anyone's looking, I-9 Advantage, and there's many other softwares out there you can use.
Great. Haven't heard of this before, but perhaps you have bait and switch situations happening. So for example, client hired manufacturing, but they actually aren't doing any manufacturing. How do we get clients to be more clear on job duties and how job duties can increase over time? Are you seeing anything like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's with any job, right? We've all taken our current positions, and I'm sure there's a couple extra tasks that we do in a given. And we've certainly dealt with the candidates that say, well, you told me I have to do this, and that's all I want to do. Mm-hmm. That particular candidate's going to be a difficult candidate to deal with, I think, just in general. Not really sure what exactly it's going with on that.
And I think it's, partnering with your clients. So for us, we do site inspections and ensure that what we're signing up for is what our associates are doing. So I think that's a big part as an employer that we have responsibility for.
And we got a yes, Tina, in the comments. Yes, in terms of work site inspections.
Yeah, and again, in a little bit defense of our clients, right now, they may be asking some of our people to do a little extra just because they're so short-staffed.
Yeah.
But most of us on the commercial side and the industrial side, we make it very clear to our clients that we need to know exactly what our people are doing. Obviously, we talked about safety earlier. The biggest factor towards accidents is when our people start doing something that was not prescribed in the job description.
And I think a quick flip on that is that, when clients are being, a little picky in this particular market, is that I think that if someone can do 100% of the job you're asking them to do today, then they're overqualified for the job that you're hiring them for. They need to understand that 70, 80%, and maybe even a little bit less right now, is someone that's willing to work for you, and just kind of pushing those people.
Great points. We're seeing some comments in terms of childcare. This is really great, as we talked about September, potentially, hopefully in-person schooling returning. We did an earlier webinar talking about the impact of women in the workforce in particular, and how they've had to step out to do caretaker roles. It's really an untapped labor pool, though. So women actually make up half of the working population, but only 1/3 of the U.S. manufacturing workforce. Do you have any specific plans you can share in terms of how to recruit women?
So I think for us, we're really looking about how do we put flexibility in their hands, right? Because I feel like that's what the female workforce needs when they come back. The traditional industries they may have left are either not flexible to them not going in the office every day, or, if they can only work from 9 to 2 while their children are in school, and, the unknown of what's going to happen a month from now. So I think it's really about flexibility. It's also about ensuring that they have opportunity to start off, but have a place to go. They can advance, they can continue to upskill, and maybe get back to the level that they were before they left the workforce.
Yeah, I think a lot of corporate environments are, helping in that, maybe setting the bar for what some manufacturing clients can do to try to get those women to return and get into these jobs with offering childcare. If they're the provider for the children, how do you get out to work, with a schedule that needs you to be at manufacturing zone from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.? How do you get your kids to and from school? It's definitely something there. Certainly a road that, is a road you need to be sure you're going to go down to go, but some large corporations out there outside of manufacturing space are certainly doing that and doing that well. So something to note, from the competition.
Wonderful. And I think we have time for about one more question. We've talked about this a little bit in terms of getting people to show up for their shifts. We've talked about retention and everything. How about motivating folks to pick up other shifts? So it seems like they're just coming for their original job and then they're just out the door. Anything in terms of increasing will to work?
I think in that space, you need to give them some motivation. Like, what are they going to get out of it, right? One of the biggest things that we've seen recently is just around associate appreciation, right? Is there a contest? Is there an award? Is there something? And it doesn't have to be monetary. Sometimes it's just recognition. Mm-hmm. So I would think along those lines. How do we recognize people? How do we make them feel special? Without, just feeling like, oh, well, you're just throwing me 10 extra shifts. What are they getting out of it?
Yep. And along the lines of ghosting, are you required to, what are the consequences of this? Are you required to report a refusal of a job or ghosting to any kind of state unemployment agencies? Any consequences, or they're looking for the aspects?
I don't know if it's a matter of consequences. As staffing providers, we have to remember it's our suitor rate. Mm-hmm. So, as a good steward of your company, it would be well to report those who have refused work, because it's going to help you. Otherwise, they're just going to claim you as an employer, and it's going to increase your suitor rate. So we've had a very good rate for a lot of years. SUTA is a lagging indicator, so once you ruin your rate, it'll haunt you for 3 years. So we've become very aggressive, knowing that the states are basically broke. We've become very aggressive on that side of the business, just because we really have to defend our SUTA rate.
That's great to know. Wonderful. I think we might have done it. We might have gotten through all of the questions. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you again for joining Monster's webinar on the light industrial industry and getting talent back to work. We really appreciate you being such an engaged audience. Again, if there happens to be something that we did not get to, please feel free to shoot me a note and I will try to pass it on to the appropriate person. And of course, a big thank you to our panelists today. So thank you so much for your time and for your expertise. We hope that everyone can end today's session a little bit more enlightened, prepared, ready to switch from recruiters to salespeople and get out there on that war for talent. So thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone.